Hello, and welcome back to part 20 in this series. And in this one, hopefully we'll have our little program working. And what I've done since the last time is written a little outline of our program and what we learned already using this int21 list. Now, as far as reading characters, the one we've been using, read from standard input with echo, is function 1. And we don't want that one, we don't want the echoes. It turns out that there are, in fact, 4 reading character style functions. And I believe, I haven't tested it yet, it's more fun to do it on the fly, but the one we want is 8. 6 says direct console input. I don't like the sound of that. It sounds too much like it might be like get, which only uses the console. And it doesn't sound like the one we want. 7 sounds more like what we want. Read character without echo, but it doesn't have this Ctrl-C and Control-Break checking, which we're going to want in case we make a mistake and we can't get out. So it would be good if we have this. And this one, 8, again, character input, no echo, and it handles Control-C. So when we get stuck, we can get out. So 8 sounds like the right function. Okay. So now, without actually coding this in, I made a little outline. Our program is going to be called toUpper, let's say. Here is our main entry point, 100 plus 100. So if we're going to use function 8, we move that into a high, call it 21. Here now I'm checking for the end of file character. If it is end of file, I want to go to quit. Just way down over here, int20 quit. Okay. Otherwise, now I'm checking for the carriage return. Remember, the keyboard's only going to give me a D and no A. If it's not a carriage return, I say go to checking for making characters uppercase, which is the goal here in the program, is to convert from lower to uppercase. And where that is, that's here. So I should put a label here. Okay. So if it's not a D, a carriage return, we'll just continue as normal. Otherwise, DOA, yeah. Otherwise, I'm gonna call a function called print that I made up. And here's our function print. Our function print takes a low as a parameter and does the print as we had before. A high 2 moves into D low, the A low value, calls in 21 and returns. So this makes a mess of AX and DX. It doesn't clean up, but we don't need it to clean up, turns out. So we call print. Now we put into A low the other value we want to print, line feed, call print again, and then continue on the program. Go back to main. Otherwise, these values I figured out. I'll show you how to figure these numbers out quite easily. What we're doing is if it's a lowercase letter, we want to go to uppercase. So what I do is I enter into 200, little a, little z, big A, big Z, whatever. So it's clear then that little a is a 61, and little z is a 7a, and capital A is a 41, capital Z is a 5a. So you'll notice that essentially there's a difference of 20 between them. The capitals plus 20 gives you the smalls. Going back to our program, if the A low that we read from the int 21 call with 8, after being compared with 61, which is little a, if it's below little a, it definitely cannot be within this range. So we just go ahead and print whatever we got. If it's, now I compare it with z, and if it's bigger than z, jump if above z, if it's bigger than z, it definitely still can't be in that range, so there's nothing to do but print. Otherwise, I'm going to subtract 20 from our value and fall straight through to the print line and then back to 100. So that's the outline. Now we'll just see if we can get all this fitting in. Right. According to this outline, first part is that. Next part is to compare with end of file. That's true, we want to go to quit. I don't know where that is yet. Okay, now we're checking with D. And if it's not a D, we want to do the uppercase check. Again, I don't know where that is. We'll figure it out later. That means in here, it is a D. So we're going to call something, our function print. Again, I don't know where it is. I'll just put 1C, and then we'll move A into A low. Again, we call print. We'll keep it the same number as that one. Okay, so far so good. And jump to 100. Next, now we're at tupler. Tupler is what this guy should be jumping to. So I know now that this is 116. Let me fix it. So that part's fixed. We're on 116. Okay. Compare A low to 61. jump it below to do the print, final print. I don't know where that is. We'll compare this now with 7A. If it's above that, same place, we'll give it the same number. And now we subtract 20. So it turns out 120 is where the call print label is. So now I can fix these two. Okay. Now at 120, which is where we are, I'm going to call print, which I've been calling, I don't know what I've been calling it, I forget, 10C. And then back to 100. Okay. So that's the end of the main part of the program. We can put our print function right here on the next line. So our print function is in fact 125. So where we see those calls, one of them's at 10C. We want to change those to 125. Okay. Call. This one too. And that should be it for the calls. Now, this would be a quit. I still don't know where the quit is, so we have to put in our function at 125. That does this. And return. So 12C is a good place to put our quit. And so therefore this end of file should jump to 12C. Everything fits. Okay. So that should be our program. How big is it? 2C. No. Without this part. 2E. And your name. Did I name it? 2 upper. Okay. Quit this. We should get the same thing back. do that. It's now how come I got a jump 0 here? Oh, this is the wrong place. Was it 1 2? It was 1 2 3. Okay, I'm going to rewrite this out again. Quit. Alright, read a character in. If can you put it all on one page? $100 to C. Yeah. So we can see it all now on one page. So the characters and the file go to 12C. 12C, quit. That's good. If it's a D, if it's not a D, go to 116, which is doing the uppercase check, upper or lowercase thing. That's good. If it was a D, then first we're calling 125, which should print whatever's in A low. 125. Moving to A high 2, move into D low, whatever's in A low, int 21 and return. Works. And we put a line feed in there, call the print again, so we can character turn line feed, and then to resume the program. Otherwise, at 116, same as before. If it's less than 61, go to 120, which calls print and jump. It's bigger than 7A, go to 120, print, jump. Otherwise, subtract 20 from A low, print, jump. So that should do it. Alright. Well, so far, I can't type in, I'm not able, can't tell where you are, but I'm not able to type any lowercase letters. That's good. Character turn worked, so it's doing pretty much the first part, converting everything to uppercase. Ctrl-Z should get me out, and it did, and of course it was an echo this time. Now, I'm curious. It'll probably hang, but let's see. I'll try and type that into a new program. Okay, almost. It just didn't quit. See, it's actually converted all this to uppercase, but we can't get out, unfortunately. So we gotta fix that problem. How do we fix it? Is that one problem? That's two problems actually we've got. There's only one. There's only these ones already have the character turn and the line feed, so we're getting extra lines on these, and it's not quitting. Okay, so how do we handle that? I'm going to just pause here for a second. Okay, I'm back, and that wasn't actually a second, that was more like several hours of me searching and trying to find a way around our problems. And what I did find out was that we can't use the function that I suggested we would use, function 8. Turns out that that 1a end of file character is simply inaccessible. Even if it were there, we wouldn't be able to retrieve it, generally speaking, using the functions available. I found several more functions to do with reading from standard in. In fact, I now have a list of 5 reading from standard in functions. None of them do the trick, except for this last one here, 3F. 8 was the one we thought might work, and didn't. A is a buffered type read, which is something like what we're going to have to do. That one takes a pointer to a buffer as input, as well as its parameter. And it returns and tells you how many characters were stored in the buffer. This buffer can only be can only hold a maximum of 256 characters. Actually 255. And if the buffer gets full, DOS gets blocked. So, for instance, if the buffer had only 10 bytes in it, and we're trying to, and there's more than 10 bytes on a line that you're reading in, then the call to int21 never returns. So that's a major problem, and there's no way out of that. I tried various things to see if we could test to see how, just partly read some of it and so on. And none of my tests seem to work. It always just hangs. But I found this one, finally, which does work. And in fact, this is the one that I wanted to show you in the first place anyway. Here we have to use an actual file handle. And so we need to find out the file handle for standard in. Here we specify how many bytes to read, rather than relying on the operating system to tell us how many bytes were read. And again, we pass a buffer. To find out if we hit the end of a file, whenever there's a successful read, this carry flag is clear. If there's a successful read, but the number of bytes happens to be 0, then we've successfully read nothing, and that means we've hit the end of a file. If this carry flag is set, then an error occurred, and we're not going to worry about that, we're just going to quit. So in both of those cases, we're going to quit. Otherwise, we just continue to read from this buffer, or into this buffer, print out the contents of the buffer, go back to reading more, until eventually we get the clear and 0 scenario, which means end of file, and we're done. So now I have to rewrite that outline using this read instead of the other one. It'll be essentially the same program, but a little bit different on the reading part. So this is long already, so I'll cut this off here. And the next one, 21, should be the end, the final version of the initial test that gets us at least changing things to uppercase and with the redirection and all that. Okay, so until that time, goodbye for now.